order, please. Can you please join me in a flag salute? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for coming. It's working. Hello, is it working? Good. Okay. For knowledge for everybody on the up of the council, the back speakers in the back of the room don't work, so please try to speak up a little bit when it's your turn to talk. Council's all present. Is there any announcements to the agenda?
No.
Any declarations of ex parte contact, conflict of interest, bias, etc.? From anybody? Hear none. Opportunity for public comment. Do we have anyone wishing to give public comment? Alyssa? Melanie? Anybody? No? Anybody wishing to give public comment? Doesn't look like it. Goes to start with the consent agenda for February 20th City Council regular session minutes and resolution number 1094 appointing Nicholas Raba to the Public Arts Commission. Council?
Mr. Mayor,
Council Ort?
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Seconded.
Okay. It's moved in second to accept the consent agenda as submitted. Any more discussion?
Real quick, Mr. Mayor, this is Councilor Patty.
Councilor Patty, go ahead.
I just want to say thanks to Nicholas for agreeing to serve this way. Sounds like we're going to have a quorum here and we can move forward on this, and I just want to say thank you.
Yeah, agreed. Thanks, Nick. Anybody else? All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries 5-0. That leaves us with, I think, 2 vacancies on the Art Commission now?
Yes.
Okay. I would encourage some youth applicants on that one if we could. Just throwing that out there. Leaves us the presentations. Any presentations today? Nope. Public hearing? None. Leaves us the general business, and that is, first item of general business is resolution number 1093, Judge Clark contract addendum. Staff report from Mr. Brand. Right, Julia? Good to go?
I'm sorry.
Just want to make sure James is going to...
Yes, James is doing the presentation.
Thanks, James.
Good evening. What we have here is just an update to the contract for Judge Clark. Nothing's changing except for the pay. It's been pretty much long overdue. He brought that to our attention and we looked into it and thought it was time. So it's a modest increase that would go into effect in March right now. And it would increase his monthly from $2,000 to $2,200. And I'd take any questions if you have it.
Council, any questions for Mr. Brand? Better yet, is there any public comment? No public comment, no questions. James, thanks for the update.
Thank you.
What would the council like to do, or council discussion to start with? Okay, what does the council want to do?
Mr. Mayor. Oh. Mr. Mayor. It's Councilor Patty. I'd like to move that we approve resolution number 1093.
I'll second.
It's been moved and second to approve resolution 1093, the Judge Clark contract addendum. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries 5-0. Second item of business is resolution number 1095, Small Municipalities Advocacy Coalition membership. Julia?
Yes, thank you. You have a resolution in your packet essentially validating your intention, if that is your intention, to join the Small Municipalities Advocacy Coalition. In your staff report, we provide a little bit of background on what they are. It's a newer coalition of small cities, really focusing on rural voices and interests. The cost to join the coalition, which includes training, research, bill tracking, and lobbying efforts, is $5,400. And if you pass this resolution, the plan is that we'll put that into the budget for next fiscal year to pay for that. Sean Tate, who gave a presentation, I think a month or so ago, to the council on this coalition, is here if there are any questions of him. And other than that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, council. Oh, sorry. Another opportunity for public comment on this resolution. Anybody wish to speak? Doesn't sound like it. Council, discussion, please.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor McDonald.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed with Sean's presentation when he came the first time. I really think that this kind of thing is going to be important, and I hope this kind of thing, if not from them specifically, other organizations, sprout up and represent the rural and small communities more in this state. I think we're underrepresented as it stands currently, so I think it's really important that we have as many allies as we can. So I'll definitely supporting this resolution.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Giglio.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Councilor McDonald said as well. I think this is very important, and I look forward to just the whole process that was laid out in the review and being able to help set priorities and just that whole kind of feedback loop that was laid out by Sean Tate when he was here last. So I think that's just what I'm looking forward to, and I think it's a great asset and a much needed group to have. So.
Okay. Anybody else? Councilor Sims.
I'll jump on that bandwagon also. I like the presentation also, and I thought Sean did a really good job, and would definitely like to get in on the ground floor, because it looked like there wasn't a whole lot of cities that have signed up for it yet. It looked like about a half dozen when I was looking through there, but I think it'd be good for us to get involved in that program, SMAC.
Councilor Art, anything? Yep. I do have a question for Sean. Sean, can you come up for a minute? And just see if you can answer this question for me. I do have a reservation about what the return on the investment looks like, and what is the metrics that you're going to be able to deliver for us?
And can you make sure that the green light, push the button so that the green light is on? Thank you.
Did I get it right? Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I appreciate the question. ROI is a very difficult thing to pin down in the world of government relations because there are an incredible amount of moving parts. But let me give you an example of some recent impact that SMAC has made that might help kind of explain where we will be most impactful as a small beginning organization. We had a few of our members voice some struggles with their lagoon water purification systems and the ability to get somebody certified to run them. All right, this has been an issue for a lot of people for a while now, and we connected with our folks, with our friends at the DEQ. We connected with a couple of committee chairs to bring this to bring this issue to light, and are now working on a informational hearing for the June Legislative Days event, which will bring this issue to light really for the first time in a public forum with DEQ at the table, so that we can have a discussion and then move forward on a solution. All right, so ROI comes from what it is that we decide to engage in, right, and how we decide to do it. And as more folks come to me and say, I've got this issue and these members of the coalition have this issue, let's work on it together, then we can start to see the machine crank out some of the solutions that we're looking for. So does that answer your question?
Possibly. So
Okay.
If I understand what you're saying is you're going to be basically the fact-finding point of contact. You're going to bring all the information together on behalf of those folks in your organization for us to do the lobbying, for us to go and pitch ourselves?
So the model that SMAC brings to the table is sort of a hybrid, right? It's not hiring a lobbyist to go to Salem or other levels of government and pitch what the issues are. The idea was that hasn't been the solution people have been looking for, right? So if we get the people that are from the community, that run the program, that have their hands on the system, speaking to the issue, that kind of removes maybe an unnecessary layer. So I will be doing political strategy for the group. I will lobby when it's necessary, but ideally what we're trying to do is get community members, those that run the systems that we're concerned about, to have the conversations at the policy level, which really starts to make change faster.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Councilor Patty. Hey, thank you, Mr. Tate, for coming before us again and answering some questions we may have here. So I was just kind of curious. I realize we're kind of at the ground level of the creation of this organization, but as you grow in city membership, is it your eventual intent to hire lobbyists who would advocate at the state legislature on behalf of cities like ours or other cities in your membership?
That's a great question. I appreciate it. It is my intent to bring on those colleagues and professionals for specific issue areas that I perhaps lack expertise in, or that I know somebody does, and specifically perhaps regionally from across the state as well. So if that answers your question.
Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, Councilor Giulio.
Yeah, Mr. Tate. So kind of as we've talked about just the way, just I guess on just a practical level, how are you hearing kind of the feedback? How are we providing feedback on important issues, helping set agendas for like the coming legislative session, for example?
So how do we establish communication, or how have we established communication channels?
Yes.
At this point, so since we have a relatively small group, we're at 8 members, hopefully to 10 in about the next 30 days, and then more. Right now, what we've been doing is when we have issues of urgency or issues that we need to connect on, it's been text, phone, and email, and I have been very dogged in my desire to contact these members so that we can engage in these legislative issues. As the as the group grows, right, that strategy might change a little bit to include some maybe a little bit more technology, some fast ways to communicate with people. Legislative session happens fast, right? And as an example, we got during the short session a week ago, we got notice that everything goes to 1 hour notice. In other words, you can amend a bill, or you can have a hearing, or you could schedule a this or that and the other thing, as long as you've given somebody 1 hour's worth of notice, all right? So you have to have a practical manner to connect with people rapidly, and texting has really been the quickest way to do it, but formal emails go out to the SMAC coalition and with policy briefs and bill reports and things like that. So.
Fantastic. And I know that you mentioned in your model there's kind of a feedback loop after session ends, and then there's kind of a development of an agenda after that, like a kind of a legislative agenda moving forward.
That's right.
Is that a kind of a similar process, or does that look a little different?
I think the process for setting up what the look at 2025 will be some Zoom meetings that involve all members, some roundtables where we discuss what some of those issues are. For example, if there's more members who have issues with the DEQ relative to TMDL or whatever it might be, well, maybe there's a group that gets set up to work on that issue, which I manage. Maybe there's a legislative solution to that, which we write and try to get a bill for in 2025. But we will have a lot of conversations after mid-March about how the short session went, right? How we did relative to communicating and getting feedback and drafts back and forth, right? In terms of, how efficient were we? And then what can we do to do that better or differently going into the 2025 session? But I do anticipate lots of conversations with members where somebody says, well, I have this problem with this agency and this piece of infrastructure. What do we do? And then that becomes a topic that we take up, right? And maybe it has a legislative solution, maybe it has an agency solution, but somewhere there's a solution and we go look for it. So.
Thank you. That answers my question.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Council Orr, go ahead.
Mr. J, I apologize, I wasn't at your presentation, so if you
You're fine.
said this. So is your communication, who is your communication within the city? Is your point person Julia, or is that the mayor? And then with your updates, do the counselors receive your updates? Okay.
If counselors want updates, I've got them, and you can have them. Typically, the connection is with the city manager.
Okay.
Often it's with the city manager and the mayor.
So I figured.
Sometimes if it's an issue that somebody's really passionate about, that counselor and the city manager and the mayor are on the communications team where we're all talking about it. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Anybody else? Sean, I just want to make sure that you're not saying that your organization will be a substitute for the advocacy on behalf of what the elected officials up here do, correct?
Not a bit. It's not a substitute for what you do. It's an enhancement for what you do, and to bring additional support to what you do, and to bring additional support and efforts to your relationship with the League of Oregon Cities and all the different groups that help advocate for and on behalf of small municipalities in Oregon.
Gotcha. I think for me, it's just an unknown, right? You're starting out. I don't know how to quantify what the return on the investment is other than what you just told us. And so I guess at the end of the term, we'll find out.
I wish there was a better answer
Right.
with regard to government relations and ROI, but it really, really does come down to how much you guys engage, quite honestly.
Okay, thanks, Sean.
You're welcome.
What would council like to do?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Giulio.
Yeah, I will move to adopt the resolution number 1095 to join SMAC.
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilor Patty. I second that motion.
Okay, moved in second to approve resolution number 1095 to join Small Municipalities Advocacy Coalition. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimous 5-0. Thank you. Next up, for information only, is review status of council goals in preparation for budget. Julia?
Thank you. I'm passing down, or having passed down. It's a one-page front and back. It's the goal summary sheet that I have included quarterly in your council updates. But basically, we're doing this verbally today. It's just a chance for us to dive a little bit deeper. You guys can ask questions. The directors are here if you have any specific questions that I can't answer, or if they want to add on to it. And really, I want to go through this, give you that update. I mean, the mayor sort of gave a little bit of the update in his State of the City address, but we're also going to dive in a little bit more and just see if there's any prioritization, reprioritization as we go into our budgeting process. And that's really why we're doing that tonight and verbally. So what you have, again, is a one-page front and back. We've got in the blue bar across the top is the goal statement. So goal 1, improve the city's infrastructure and support maintenance and sustainable funding. On the left-hand side is the outcomes that were stated. So under the goal 1, it's a well-maintained city infrastructure, stability in the funding of the city's infrastructure, and being fiscally responsible. And then the third column is the objectives that you lined out. And then we have a column that says the staff lead. And the timeline is what we initially, when you adopted the goals last year, we proposed this timeline, and that's what we want to get a little bit of feedback on. I've color-coded the timeline. Orange is essentially ongoing, or we've started it. The red is we haven't started it, and the green is essentially done. So you can see there's mostly oranges with a few reds. And then we've given updates quarterly, so we gave an update in July, as well as October, and then the far right-hand corner or column is the January update. Is there a?
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay.
It must be colorblind.
He's trying to figure
I'm
out
sorry.
the colors.
Peachy, sorry. I was trying not to like be shocking. I just wanted to be subtle with my where we're at, not like in your face with where we're at. So we can go down one by one. That might, I mean, if that's, it might be take a little bit of time, but we can go through it and see if you have any questions, or if you just want to kind of go through and ask questions. I'm happy to do that. Looking for some suggestions or feedback.
What would council like to do?
Okay.
I'd like to go down it.
All right, so objective 1.1 under goal 1 is develop a 5-year capital improvement plan to include all capital investments. We identified doing that this year, and we've kind of started it, kind of done it, and kind of have some work to do. So that's why it's orange. There is a capital improvement plan. You adopt it every year in the budget. It's a 5-year plan, but it's not a lot of detail. With the utility rate study, we certainly updated and looked at that a little bit more, and there is still something more that I would like us to be working on, which is more of a holistic document that I think will be more user-friendly, and that's something yet to come. But so I feel like that's an ongoing, but we're working on it. I wouldn't say that's done, and it's certainly not started. Any comments or questions on that? 1.2 is complete analysis of the aquatic facility to understand capital and operational needs for the future. It's red. We really haven't started it, but Alyssa has found some good leads, and we're working on that, and probably going to include some money in the budget. That's the stat, right? To work on that going forward. We know we've got to get something done in the relatively near future before we start gearing up for the next operational levy for the pool and parks. 1.3, complete current facility study and prioritize minor facility improvements. That is, we've completed the study, so that is done, but we haven't prioritized and funded the minor facility improvements. We do have some specific things that we know we want to do. One is to convert that storage room that's off of Ida into a conference room, which would give a lot more privacy for meetings and allow the opportunity for people to go into the meeting without going through City Hall, and then also ultimately would allow for the redevelopment within City Hall to expand for some staff usage. We've gotten some initial quotes for quotes, and so we're actually looking at moving forward with the remodeling for the conference room this year, but we need to get we need to put money in the budget for a more for the City Hall remodel for next year, and getting quotes for that. And the plan is that that would include a bathroom as well, so it would really be a self-contained meeting room. And if anybody has been met in that meeting room, you know there really isn't any privacy when staff are in the rooms right next door. That's, yeah. Well, and the mayor certainly does, because he tried to record many times. Stop me if on any of these if you have any questions or comments. 1.4, complete the utility rate analysis. Again, that's mostly complete, except for the big giant street elephant that we still have yet to tackle, so it's not done yet, but that is something we're still working on. 1.5, explore opportunities for alternative funding sources to address infrastructure needs. That's ongoing. You know, we're constantly doing that, and in the status columns we've listed you know, the status of us applying for loans, us getting loans. Actually, I'll go ahead and one of the things I was going to mention tonight in my updates is that we it looks like we have received $3 million from the state for sewer funding for Ida Street through Senate Bill 1530. So just we're still working on things. So that will probably always be yellow, because there'll always be something for us to do. 1.6, complete construction of the aquifer storage and recovery system at Mill Creek Park. That is ongoing, but it is on track. We're on schedule, we're proceeding, but we know that that's not going to, we knew that that was going to get done. Phase 1, which is really the design, was going to be done this summer, and then I'm like misspeaking, but I'm looking at my notes. Phase 1 would be September of 2024, and Phase 2 would be complete in December of 2025. So I think that's the construction would be complete in 2025. 1.7, update infrastructure master plans. Again, that's an ongoing thing. We've got the stormwater master plan that we're just starting on. The water master plan we would be working on next fiscal year, and then parks master plan in fiscal year 26. And then 1.8 is complete the update of the emergency operations plan. And again, it's not really started, I guess, but we will be working with Marion County. They got grant money to help cities do just this, and we are on the list of cities that are going to be included in their first round. And so they're in the process of doing an RFP for consultants to do that. So it's started, but it hasn't really started yet. Any questions on Goal 1, improve the city's infrastructure and support maintenance with sustainable funding?
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, Councilor Julia.
So would you say Julia, would you say 1.1, that 5-year capital investment plan, is that where you would kind of slot the conversations that we've been having kind of ongoing around kind of creating that plan for the street
yeah.
plans?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great.
Okay.
That's all.
Yeah. Okay, this next one's going to be pretty easy. Goal 2, align housing policies with the community needs. The outcome was understanding housing inventory, availability, and potential needs, and understanding and maintaining local control of our growth. The objectives were complete the update of the housing needs analysis and prioritize recommendations, and then also evaluate and update policies and procedures and standards for annexation. It's easy because we actually haven't done anything on that yet. As you recall, we had a transition in staff, and Jennifer is now on board and starting to get things under her feet, and so that is certainly on her radar for this next year. What we really need to be doing is looking at grants to help us do that work. So that's going to be something that we're working on. So that's where we're at with those. Any questions on Goal 2, align housing policies with community needs?
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
I got one question on.
Councilor
Well,
Sims.
actually, there's I think a bill just passed in the legislature of Oregon about annexation or annexing more acreage for the cities. I don't know if that's going to come up at any time. I think under 25,000, it was like 50 acres, and
100.
we can annex more land for future development.
100.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, I think, I don't want to speak out of turn here, Julia, but I think we need to see what all's entail in Senate Bill 1530. That's where it is.
Okay. I've only been focused on one aspect
Yep.
of 1530, so that's good.
I think there's like sewer infrastructure money in there too, I think.
Yeah, and that's where the sewer infrastructure money is where we're going to get money from. So yeah, I'll look at that. Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Giglio.
And I don't know if this is the right time, but I feel like it is kind of because it's the goal time. But there's also just a little bit of like, I kind of wonder, I mean, I think under that policies, procedures, and standards for annexation, I just kind of wonder if that's like enough to meet that kind of second objective or the second outcome in terms of understand and maintain local control of our growth. And so, yeah, I mean, I just because what I would like to see is just in general, and I know we have this change in leadership and stuff, but just to see these kind of, moving along a little faster, because I think, for me, I just want to see if that's like sufficient. I'm not saying that it's not sufficient, but I want to make sure that, you know, we don't necessarily need to update some zoning language, some things like that, because I am interested in trying to really make sure that we have that local control within our city, and looking for ways. And I know the primary way you do that is through zoning, is through potentially even annexing and zoning, because you have a little bit more control over what goes in those spots. So so those are just things I do really want to keep on the front burner, and maybe think about, are there some other solutions that we can look at to help maintain that local control?
Yeah, I think we certainly do need to start those and give you information to let you know whether or not you have any other things that you want to add or changes that you need to make.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I think reviewing the Senate bill, if it does get signed by the governor, it'll start that process for us.
Oh, okay. Does it identify funding? Is that what you're thinking, or it requires?
Yeah, requirements of,
Great.
yes.
Okay. Okay. Goal 3, increase communication, engagement, and transparency. Under outcomes, you identified increased community involvement and support, increased transparency, create community infrastructure to understand current community needs, and accountability to the public. You had 4 objectives. The first one was align resources to support increased engagement. And I identified this as an ongoing. We did hire Christian. That was a huge alignment of resources to really focus and dedicate a body towards this. But it's really kind of an ongoing thing where, you know, we need to be looking at other things. Do we get data, you know, like GoGov type of app things that will allow us to increase engagement with the community, just even the events that we've done where we invite people in and we have invitations and we have snacks. Those are all kind of like part of that. And so as we are going through the budget process, that's something I'm going to be thinking about and looking at. So I feel like it's more of an ongoing. It's not like, oh, we're done, we've aligned our resources and we're good. That's going to be constantly something that we're kind of looking at and looking to feedback from you guys. You know, do you feel like we're being, you know, excessive? Do you feel like we could be doing more? So, you know, think about that as we're either now or as we're going into budgets, kind of thinking about how we're budgeting for that kind of thing. 3.2, increase two-way public engagement to build awareness around infrastructure master plans. And again, I feel like this is an ongoing thing. We're just starting the stormwater master plan. We did the update of the Mill Creek Park, trying to kind of have more opportunities for surveys and responses. I think that's something that we'll always be able to continue to work on and improve. So that's why that's marked as ongoing.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and my understanding for this is also that I feel like that objective, I felt like was really trying to align it with the infrastructure, like the infrastructure needs when it comes to streets. And so I would connect that into almost that, yeah, for that comprehensive plan and the ways that we are really engaging the community for street improvements and for other infrastructure improvements. So that's kind of where I see that, as I can remember that conversation.
Okay. 3.3, update the city's website to improve navigation and ease of use. I marked that as done. We have done that, but as the mayor said in his State of the City, it's ongoing too. We're going to continue to update. We're not going to just sit on that, but for the most part, we feel like that project has been done. As well as 3.4, established guidelines and criterias for community fund to support community-driven projects. That's the community improvement program. You gave us the go-ahead to go forward with that. You had the criteria, so that's done. That might be something that we want to explore again. That, you know, we might want to have sort of a circle back after we're done with the community improvement grant and see if you want to make changes. So maybe I could mark that as ongoing if that's something that you guys want to do, but that's why that was marked as green. Any comments or questions on goal 3, increased
Mayor.
communication.
Go ahead, Councilor Patty.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, Julia, if we could circle back to 3.3 real quick. This may be anecdotal at this point since I feel like the redesign of the website's still pretty new, but have you heard from anybody in the community saying, hey, this is easier to use, or hey, this is really difficult now that you've transitioned over? Like any complaints or anything that we should be unaware of?
The only thing I've heard was actually Myrna at the City of Sublimity was like, wow, this looks great. She was surprised by it and sent me an email thinking it was great. I haven't heard any negative or positive. I'm looking at, Jana is nodding. Negative or positive? Negative. Oh, positive. Okay. So we've heard positives, but not a lot from. I think that, I can circle back actually maybe at the next meeting, and we can have Christian give you a summary of just web, like we can look at where we've been, where we were at last year. We've got all those metrics and stuff like that on, we don't, because when we transitioned, we lost it. Is that right?
There's some Google coding issues we run into.
Never mind. We're working on it.
Real quick, a follow-up on that.
Go ahead.
Do we have the ability to reorganize that website or change it or do any modifications to it if we identify any common threads or issues for
yeah.
end users or things?
Yep,
Okay,
yep.
cool, thanks.
Yeah, and again, we're doing that regularly. We're adding, we just added recently the projects pages, and now we're starting to put information out there on different projects, and we'll be continuing to add that or move things around so that it's easier to find. So, and certainly, if you guys see anything, hear anything, if you're frustrated by anything, let us know, because that's sometimes the only way we know what's going on. So.
Councilor Orr,
Mr. Mayor,
go ahead.
thank you. For the website, maybe we could do a poll on, I think you can do that on Facebook, but like have you checked out our website? And then have them do a poll if they like it or not.
Okay.
I don't know, it's not going to be obviously extensive, but it's not going to be scientific, but at least get you some feedback, I think. I wanted to go back to kind of echo what Councilor Jaleo was saying about the 3.2. I would agree that in my mind that also included conversations about our streets in particular, kind of just really echoing and trying to drive home that we really want that to be a public engagement. So that's something that I'd like to add on there too.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess I look at, for me, the message is throughout everything that we do, increase two-way public engagement to build awareness, for everything, right? But yeah, that's good to be reminded of that. Any other comments on Goal 3 or questions?
I gave you kudos on the website.
Yeah, I like the website. I think it looks great.
Oh, good,
And
good.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Giglio.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think if you put that Facebook poll up and there's like, a bunch of people who vote no, then I think like there's just an underlying, maybe something else is up, because it's a great website. Yeah. They're just trying to like let off
You're
some
just
steam.
an angry person.
Yeah, it's a good website.
All right, Goal 4, foster a diverse and balanced economy to support a vibrant and prosperous community. The outcomes were diverse and balanced economy to support livability and provide employment opportunities for, I clearly cut off the rest of it, for people. Sorry. Yeah, for people. I believe, unless I totally cut everything off, that there was really one objective, and that was review existing economic development strategies and consider whether modifications or reprioritization is necessary. And that is really not started yet, but and that's just the physical act of looking at our strategy and looking at our policies. Again, with Jennifer getting on board and getting up to speed, that wasn't the top priority, but it's something that will definitely be being worked on in the remainder of this year and next year. Comments,
Mayor.
questions?
Councilor Sims.
Julia, would that tie into, I guess, our roundabout and the stormwater for the industrial complex and bringing in some jobs there?
It could, I mean, depending on what if you decided that there were modifications or reprioritization, it could.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to think about that. It seems like that would tie in with the roundabout and development of our stormwater in that industrial park. Because I mean, that would bring in quite a bit of economic development there and jobs and
Yeah, and it
prosperity.
is, I mean, it is important. I think that's focusing on what it is that we want to achieve from an economic development standpoint is critical. And I think what the objective is let's just dust off what we have, make sure that it's good and exactly what we want to be doing, add or modify a little bit. It's not necessarily a wholesale throw out and redo, but it's really just make sure, I don't know how many counselors were actually on the council when that was adopted, so it's really just kind of like bringing it back in front of this council and looking at it and making sure that it makes sense and revalidating the priorities or reshifting some priorities, but it's just so it's something that we need to get done. And I'm looking, we did identify it as April of 2024, so something that we had identified starting here soon. Jennifer in the back. All right, any more questions on goal 4?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Giglio.
Yeah, I think this will probably end up, bearing itself out. It definitely feels like the smallest of the goals in terms of like what can be done for creating like that support. So, I mean, to me, I just feel like, yeah, I think this would just be something to prioritize, kind of. And I guess, that's a pretty good timeline that you have there, but just in the beginning of this next fiscal cycle, really trying to like focus on that, just because I think it'll really help, especially when we're like making some of these budget decisions. I think having that information is going to be really helpful to know, okay, are there actual modifications that we want in this plan as we're moving forward? Because I think, especially when kind of what you were bringing up with the roundabout, with things like that, are there, how pivotal is that to part of the plan? And just having kind of an overall perspective on that. So that's all I want to say. But overall, no other questions that I have on that goal.
Okay. And last but not least, goal 5, implement modern governance systems that improve service to the community. The objective or the outcomes of that were modern governance that meets community needs and complies with state laws. It's sort of really overreaching with those goals and outcomes that you want to see. I'm kidding, of course. And then objectives that you identified were a complete charter review, which we haven't started yet. We had identified beginning to work on that in April of this year, and then update city council rules. And we tried. So I said that's ongoing. That's one where I'm really looking for council to give me feedback on the rules that you want to update or just drop it. Or so I'd like to get some feedback on what you guys want to do with that particular objective.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Sims, go ahead.
Is that something we'd be interested in doing a working group on for council rules and get together and discuss that? I don't know if it's worth doing that, but I've read through them, definitely, basically when I first got on the council, so I didn't really have a lot of input, but.
That's one option. I think that between those two items there, my pressing would be the charter review. And if we're going to start that in April, we need to start recruiting for a charter review committee sooner than later.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Giglio.
Yeah, and I wanted to clarify coming out of and I kind of wanted to jog our memories a little bit, because I had to leave early from a work session because my daughter we had to go to the emergency room. But I know we were initially kind of wanting to potentially like consider the the lawyer RFP, if that was something that we wanted to do. And so I left before that was all kind of completed. Did we end in that work session? Was that something that we landed on in terms of like we're satisfied with the current counsel we're receiving, or if that's something we wanted to put an RFP out? Because I know that was something that was discussed before we were wanting to necessarily do the charter review. And so I just wanted to touch base with counsel and see kind of what your memory is, and then with staff, I can't quite remember where that landed. So this jogged my memory on that.
Councilor Giglio, at the last meeting, I thought we covered the attorney issue.
So yeah, under the staff, I think under the staff updates, I mentioned that Mayor Quigley and I met with Ross and discussed with him kind of the expectations and the goals. And I think that my understanding, I wasn't at the work session when you guys discussed the RFP, but the discussion, as I understand it, was we probably don't really need to go out for a full new RFP. We just need to have a conversation with the attorney and make sure he's clear on sort of the expectations and that the communication process and system is understood, and just be, I think the direction to me, and I'm committed to doing this, is just being more of a conduit between the council and the city attorney, whereas I believe in the past there hasn't been that open dialogue, where council has a question and then the city attorney answers it and you get the information from the city attorney in one way or another. So that was my understanding, is that's kind of, we're not moving forward with the RFP because it wasn't determined that was necessary. We can certainly still talk about it if you're not feeling that you're getting the support from your legal counsel that you expect. But right now, I believe that that's where we're at.
No, that's clear. I remember talking about the conversations with the lawyer, but that brings clarity as to like why that conversation happened and kind of the context in which it happened. I don't think I had that larger context. So, and in that conversation, did you discuss at all in terms of kind of mentioning the charter review and things like that? Was that something that was discussed as well?
We did, briefly. We didn't go in depth about it. We just said what my ambition was or what my wishes were going forward. And to that note, I think it was based on Ross's recommendation that our charter needed to be reviewed just because of the way of its nature. So I don't think he took a position either way. He's there to support us as a council if we determine to go that direction.
Okay, sounds great. That answers my question. Sorry.
Oh, and I was going to say, and he did kind of give some suggestions. I mean, it sounds like there is a desire to do a charter review committee with citizens and have that kind of involvement, but there's all sorts of ways to do that. And he said sometimes it's just councils that do it. So it's really up to council on how you want to do that. And we can certainly talk about that in the near coming meetings and discuss kind of what we want that to look like. But there's a lot of ways that we could approach that.
Yeah, Councilor Giglio, I think Ross did mention or did refer us to the League of Oregon City model, so that was one option. He did give us, I think, a handful of different ideas, so we can definitely talk about it.
Absolutely, and I think, for me, and I think we'll just get into this as we get down the road, but yeah, I'm good moving forward with that. I personally don't like the LOC model. I like something more of a hybrid approach between models, but other than that, I'm good with moving forward with getting this started, as long as just that conversation around lawyers has been had.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Patty.
Thank you. Councilor Giglio, it might also kind of assuage. Let me go ahead and start here. Mr. Mayor, do you plan on meeting with the city attorney regularly?
As needed, yes, I do.
Okay. And so is the purpose of that just to kind of reemphasize council like policies and objectives and priorities and things like that going forward?
The purpose, I think the purpose depends on what the topic is.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I left that meeting with a sense of open door policy that we could go to him. Anybody on the council can go to him when we need to be, with the exception of asking Julia for process definition or operational difference, not necessarily policy difference, if that makes sense. So in the previous administration, they wanted everything funneled through them, right? Now, Ross was assuring us, and Julia supports this, that as long as it's not a process question, then really the council has the ability to approach council and then ask for clarification, ask for discussion, anything of that nature. That makes sense.
And I think I think that's generally true. I would ask that if you have a question, unless it's about me, feel free to go directly to the council if you want to talk about kind of me or, work with Alyssa or whatever. But I would prefer just to have a clue of what the question is. So, and that's, I think, what the mayor's getting at is sometimes it might not be a legal question. It's something I can easily answer without paying an attorney, or I want to know what the answer is and make sure that you all know what the answer is. And so if I would prefer to kind of know what the question is and be helping to facilitate that answer than you just go around and then you get an answer that I don't know is the answer, and I can't share that with the rest of council or staff. But we can, work through that if you have any questions.
Yeah, no, I think you guys are touching on what I was trying to get at, just so Councilor Giglio could have the benefit of some of that to understand what this is going to look like going forward, because I know that assuaged some of my concern as far as the attorney. I think that you ensuring that moving forward, we have a similar point of view and policy objectives and things like that, that assuages some of my concerns that I had previously.
Great, and I don't mind being a facilitator if that's what you guys feel comfortable doing as well.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Ort.
Did you guys talk about him coming to the meetings when we want more, when we want him here, basically?
We sure did. Now, let
Okay.
Julia elaborate.
We sure did. There's not much. Yes, we did. If there's a specific request or a specific issue, and then we'll gauge if it's a real big issue. We might say we really want you here in person. If it's he just needs to kind of be here in case something comes up. Maybe he could be here virtually, and so we'll kind of, depending on what the issue is, we will play that by ear. But he's more than willing to be here if we need him to be here.
Okay. I just want that expectation to be set up that we want him to be available, and I'm okay if he is. I know certain counselors and whatnot would want him here in person, but I'm okay if he's there on Zoom or Teams if we just have access to him. So that's my biggest thing, is having access to him.
Yeah, and I think his point of view is that a lot of times you don't want the attorney answering a question on the spot. Sometimes if you want input from the attorney, let him know, let me know, let him know, and then let him thoughtfully think about it and give you an answer versus on the spot. Certainly, again, if he's prepared, if it's the homeless, task force discussion and he knows that's what the topic is, he'll be prepared. But the expectation that he would just be there for anything that might come up, he can certainly do that, but he's going to generally want to have a little bit of time to think about an answer.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Patty.
Final question on this for me. I just was wondering, did he give you like a ballpark estimate on like how many days advance notice he would need to appear at one of our regular session meetings?
I don't know that we specifically discussed it, but if something comes up, I think between him and his team, generally they'll be able to give us something. If it's an hour before the meeting, probably not. But I think that, again, depending on what the issue is, we could probably get a fairly quick response if we need to. Charter review, I think that was all under so under council rules. So we did, I shared with the council their council rules and asked for input, and then we had I think a agenda item where it was discussed, and you said you guys were going to get input, and I still don't have input. So do we want to just kind of do that one more time? Are there do you want to do the charter review first and just see if maybe you don't really have issues with the council rules? Maybe after living with them, you realize that that's not, I guess I don't want to not meet that goal, but I'm not quite sure how to meet the goal.
Yeah, thanks for that reminder, Julia. I know we did try twice to get you some feedback on that. What does the council wish to do on that?
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, Councilor Julia.
My idea would be, I think because the charter review is more pressing, I would do that first, and then maybe potentially coming out of the review and whatever comes out of that, there may be some like changes that are going to naturally kind of flow out of that anyway, if there are some shifts to how council works. So that's what I would recommend. I personally had no pressing issue with like council rules that needs to be addressed ASAP or anything like that. So I don't really have one in my mind outside of the lawyer questions, which I feel like were kind of addressed just now in terms
Okay.
of just how to approach the lawyer and things like that. I think that was more where my area of concern was kind of originally.
Okay.
Anybody else? All right, there you go.
Thank you. So that's it.
That's it. Another opportunity for public comment then on the council goals that Julia just covered. Anybody? Come on up.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Penrice. Address is 456 4th Avenue, Stayton. Going to Councilor Patty's question about feedback on the website. I did use the website and it is very much improved. I had interest in applying to one of the commissions before I joined Budget Committee. And I tried to figure out how to find the paperwork for that on the old site, and it took me about 20 minutes to do that, going through all of the menus. It was incredibly confusing, but it took me maybe 3 on this new one. So it is a lot better, and it's a lot easier from the point of view of the citizens to be able to use it and to find ways to engage with the city. So just wanted to give you the good job on that.
Awesome. Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks, Alyssa, for whoever who did that, spearheaded it. Thank you. All right. With that, council discussion. Any more? Okay. That was for information only. Council McDonald, good.
Mr. Mayor,
Council Orr.
thank you, Julia, for putting this together. It's very helpful to see it and see how we are progressing. I appreciate this. Thank you.
All right. With that, we'll go with communication from city staff. Julia?
So we've talked on some of them already. So one thing I wanted to give you an update on, we've talked about adding certain crimes to municipal court, and we did an RFP for a prosecuting attorney or a city prosecutor. We got 2 proposals, and we need to evaluate those, and then we also want to have some conversations with council in talking with the county DA as well as the judge. One of the things that they said is that it will be important for the prosecutor to kind of understand the philosophy of the council. Do we want to, are we okay with having things cited as crimes but reduced to violations, which would then eliminate the need for a public defender in many cases, or do you want to just prosecute everything? And so having some conversation once we select somebody with just sort of like where we want them to be in terms of, leniency or not. And so what we met this morning with staff, and kind of the discussion was it'd be great to have a couple of counselors be on the review panel and the discussion panel. And so I'd love to get some volunteers from council to kind of help us with that process. And then obviously there'd be some reporting back to council as we move forward, but that would be our hope.
Okay, thank you. I saw Councilor Sim raise his hand. I thought you did, didn't you? Or are you just scratching your nose?
I did. I'm the retired guy. I don't mind doing it.
I'll do it.
Councilor Orr?
Awesome.
I did have a question about that. So is that the time when you get feedback from the council on, or are we going to do that as a whole?
Well, I mean, it might be good just to have a brief conversation about it. If you're prepared, if you're not, we could come back and have that conversation, because I'm just throwing that at you. But the idea is that those 2 counselors would kind of represent that that interest. I'm seeing Councilor Patty.
Councilor
Yeah,
Patty, go ahead.
I got a burning question before we get to that. So earlier you were talking about whether or not we want to proceed with reducing them to violations. I'm curious, and this is kind of a process question. You may not be able to answer it, and I understand that. Will that give Judge Clark or whoever more flexibility in rendering some kind of punishment or something like that to, I don't know, like what, I guess I would need to know a little bit more information before I answer that policy question that you.
Yeah, and I don't know that I can fully answer the question, but I can partially answer the question. So the issue now is that we can't cite them into municipal court because of the, I'm going to say it wrong, but essentially it's a violation, and it limits the officer's ability to, they can't stop somebody, detain somebody because it's a violation. So what it would allow us to do is essentially, I think, do what the code really intends to be done, which is having those types of things go to municipal court, but because they're crimes, it gives the officers the ability to treat them like crimes and process them like crimes. Does that make sense? Okay. But I think it would be worth it to have another conversation with Judge Clark, as you know, and probably the prosecuting attorney as we prepare for that municipal court change.
Thank you. That answers my question on that. I appreciate it.
Well, I also want to see what modifications to ballot measure 110 does for cities' ability to handle locally. So I think it's going to be part of the mix.
Okay. Okay. I think I'll schedule a work session here in the coming months to discuss that more. But in the meantime, we can at least move forward with selecting somebody and starting to have those conversations. Another volunteer opportunity, should Councilor Sims choose to accept it,
Our full-time counselor.
is Stormwater Master Plan. Lance is looking for Citizen Advisory Committee members, and I think just one, is that correct? We're looking for a volunteer from council to serve on that.
Sure.
Didn't even have to break your arm on that one, did I?
Oh, sorry, I wrote something wrong. Getting close, we're almost done. Police Forum, we have set the date. It is going to be April 11th. More details to come on that, but we're excited about that. And then last but not least, and I mentioned this earlier, but Senate Bill 1530 was passed today. It hasn't been signed, but that would give us $3 million specifically earmarked to the city of Stayton for our Ida Street sewer project. So very excited about that. I think that's it. Unless you have any questions for me.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Ward.
Julie, wasn't there, you had mentioned forgivable loan? Is that something we already have?
No,
that is-
we actually need to discuss because getting that money will maybe allow us not to. We applied for 2 portions of the forgivable loan project, and we might not have to move forward with one because of that $3 million, but we need to look at it. We got the, it's a process. We got you meet the criteria for the forgivable portion. Now fill out all this paperwork. And so it's pretty involved to do the paperwork, and so we're working through that process. It is very involved. Basically, there's a process that she said, the environmental review process usually takes 6 months to a year. Like, that's a lot of process. So we're working through that. And if we don't have to do that, that would be great. So we need to be meeting internally and discussing what we recommend moving forward on.
Okay, thank you. This is an opportunity for communication from the mayor and the council. I'll let council go first. Council have anything to discuss? All right. On a somber note, I want to acknowledge the passing of Ralph Lewis in January. Mr. Lewis served time on the council. He was a member of the Planning Commission and the Budget Committee, and he was a dedicated volunteer in the community, and my condolences to his family, but Ralph was definitely involved, and he had a heart for the community, and it clearly showed in his volunteerism, so I want to acknowledge that and appreciate him for serving in all those capacity that he did. With that, is there an update, Julia, on the I Were Mayor contest? Do we have any idea how many?
I believe Christian told me we had gotten 8. So
Okay.
he will be getting you information. So
Okay.
it's 8 more than we got last
8
year.
more than we
So
got
that's
last year,
exciting.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So he'll be. I'll get you some information tomorrow so you can start figuring out how you're going to select a winner.
Sounds good. And for the council, I wanted to give a tip of the hat from a former councilor on your work towards Mill Creek Park. Councilor Frank called me the other night and just wanted to say how appreciative it was of you all taking action and listening to what the community was talking about when it comes to the direction of Mill Creek Park. So there you go. Accolades for y'all for doing that good job is what he said. Absolutely. I think that's it for me, Julia. Anybody else? One last chance? Nope.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Hort.
I just want to let all of you know that I got some feedback from parents of a student who'd come to the awards night, and they thought that was really awesome. They hope that we continue to, if not every quarter, because that can be a lot, but she said, even if you did it twice a year, that was really awesome that we acknowledged those students in the community. So thank you for putting that together, and
Very cool.
great job, Mayor.
Yep. One more piece. I can't leave tonight without acknowledging Melanie and her help in putting together that State of the City address. She put up with my neurosis when I'm sitting there saying, let's record it again. I must have recorded the thing 25 times. I don't like my voice, but that's okay. But she was a trooper, and she did it well. And I will tell you that the room, or that the walls of the City Hall are very thin, and you can hear anything that's going on. And at one point, I was leaning against a chair, and Melanie said, "Oh, no, I can hear the chair moving." I'm like, what? So we had to do it again. Take 17. But great job, Melanie. Thank you for putting that together. Thank you for your technical expertise.
Well,
thank you for your patience in dealing with the mayor.
and on that note, I guess I also want to say thank you, Mayor, because that was a lot of work and preparation, and it was 15 minutes, but I think you dedicated 4 hours at least, if not more, to that. So that good job on that. And then also, I want to also acknowledge Melanie for an amazing job, and her whole family. I don't know if you guys know, but the little image at the end was from Nick's drone footage, and contributed that, and the slide projector and the microphone that the mayor used to record it. So just, it's a team effort.
And I think that will do it, with the exception of one last thing: acknowledgement to James and to Julia for helping me with an interview at KMUZ for the budget process for the city of Stayton. That was a good interview. I still haven't listened to it, but it happened a month ago today. Not a month ago, sorry, last week. A week ago from today. I've been up too long. But very informative interview, very well attended between all three of us, and it was a great Q&A session with them, and I appreciate the opportunity to do that on the radio, and I appreciate Kristen for setting that up. So thank you. With that, we will adjourn.